All right, guys, welcome back to the Growth by Shawn podcast. I'm sitting here with Dave Campbell today, and this is going to be an interesting podcast because David rather, has, I don't know, 7, 8 shows that you do. I've lost count at this point. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, Dave, I'll let you just take the floor. I don't know which direction you want to give your brief synopsis of who you are, whether it's podcast wise, personal wise, business wise, whatever direction you want to take this in. Let's just hear a little bit about who we're talking to today.
So you get two podcasters in a room together. What could go wrong, right?
Yep.
We're going This is going to be fun. I'm so glad to be here, Shawn. Thank you for letting me come on your show. My name is Dave. I live in Ontario, Canada, near a big thing called Niagara Falls. It's a hill, if you haven't heard. It's a big hill, lots of water, and people come from all over the world to see it. It's like 10 minutes from my house. And it's like, sometimes I forget it's even there. But it's really a beautiful place to live. I have 8 different podcasts that I host, and I've been podcasting for a few years now. And I just love all things podcasting. You get to meet great people, interact with people you would never have a chance to meet otherwise. And for me, it's a joy to not only be a podcaster, but also help people start a podcast and encourage them in their journey as well. So as I listen to your show, Shawn, you're doing amazing. Some pretty interesting guests on your podcast on a variety of topics, which I love because it's you never know what you're going to get next. So
Mhm.
well done on your show. I'm really enjoying listening to it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think the easiest way to segue is, why do you even have 8 of them? How do you even maintain keeping up with 8? I know that some of them are more seasonal, but still, like, doing one show, even if it's just one show a week, it can take a lot for people to do. How do you keep up with 7, 8, 6 at a time?
I went into a meetup group in the UK because, why not? I'm here in Canada. Why not join a UK meetup group for podcasters? And I came into the group, and first time on the meetup, they go around the room and they're like, "Oh, there's a Canadian." I have a Canadian flag behind me in the video, and they're like, "Oh, who's this guy?" So I'm like, "Introduce yourself, Dave, and tell us about your podcast." And I'm like, "Okay, here we go." So I come on. I'm like, "Hi, my name is Dave. I'm in Canada, and I have 8 podcasts." And they're like, "Oh, honey, so great. 8 episodes. You're new." And I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. 8 podcasts." And they're like, and you can see the people on the Zoom look up at the cameras, all of them, and then looking at each other on the screen, like, did he just say 8? Yeah, 8. So, yeah. So 2 of my shows have 3 episodes a week. I talk to about 25 people a week in pre-interviews and interviews. I do all my own editing. I actually have started editing for other people and helping them with their shows. And I work full time. So as we're recording, this is like 9:30 in the morning. I've been up since 9 o'clock last night. So I've worked all night and now I'm here with you. I have my coffee, and that's basically how I survive. So I notice you have your buy me a coffee now. Congrats,
Yep.
Shawn. Everyone needs to go buy Shawn coffee, and you need to put the link in the show notes. Go buy Shawn some coffee. But I live off my coffee. So that's how I do it. But I just love each of my shows are different. They all have their own websites, they all have their own social media, they all have their own communities, and they don't really blend with each other. They're all standalone podcasts. So I just have a variety of things that I love. And I just to have one podcast for me seems like not enough. And
Yep.
it is I wouldn't recommend it for everyone. Don't try this at home.
Hmm.
But for me, it works. And
Yeah.
if I could do more, I have more ideas, Shawn, but I'm not allowed to do them. My wife said no.
So when I look at this, success means something different to everyone, and work-life balance means something to everyone. What does work-life balance look like and mean to you?
So I want to challenge the whole notion of work-life balance. I think it's more like work-life harmony. They have to kind of work together because
Mhm.
there's going to be times when you have to go to work. You can't be with your kids, for example. You can't be with your partner. You have to be at work. You got to do the thing. So in that moment, there's no balance. You're at work. There's times when you're going to be home and it's the weekend and your boss calls you in to come work. No, I'm with my family. So you've chosen your family. There's there's not really a there's not really a balance for me. It's more of a harmony. How do they fit together? And at times one's going to take priority over the other, but there's got to be a harmony back to a level in between. Think of that old weigh scale where you'd put one weight in one little holder and one weight in the other holder, and it would be out of balance. You could tell, but you get that sweet spot where it's just evenly balanced. That's harmony for me. So
Okay.
there is times when I spend a lot of time podcasting, but I do that when my wife's at work. So it doesn't bother her because at 7 o'clock when she comes home from work, I shut down. I'm waiting for her upstairs as she walks through the door. But in the meantime, when she's at work, I podcast like crazy because there's time
Yeah.
and right. So it's harmony for me.
Yeah. So what was the first podcast like that you started, and why did you initially start it at all?
Yeah. First one was called the Upcycle Canada podcast. My wife and I have a small business we've had for 10 years. Um, at that time, 10 years ago, we were working three part-time jobs each. So six part-time jobs for the two of us. We have three young children at home, and we were balancing. Sometimes my wife would work three jobs in one day. So that kind of gives you an idea of
Yeah.
kind of how we're wired. But we wanted something to make a little bit of extra money to, dentists for the kids and medicine and stuff. So we created our own little business where we take things people don't want. They're going to throw them away, old furniture, clothing, materials, and we repurpose them and make them into something else. So we call ourselves Upcycle instead of Recycle,
Hmm.
Upcycle Canada. And so, like, for example, I mentioned I have a Canada flag behind me. That's the drawer front from a drawer from a dresser.
Oh,
And the dresser was being thrown away. So we took the drawer off, repainted it as a Canadian flag, and now it's behind me. And that
mhm.
was going to go in the landfill. So it's
Yeah.
all about repurposing and redirecting waste. So we've been doing this for 10 years. So during the pandemic, uh, we weren't able to see our customers, but our customers, because we live in Niagara Falls, they would buy our products and take them home. So we have products in England, Mexico, Colombia, the US, throughout Europe. People would buy our stuff and fly home with it. So what better way to talk to our customers than a podcast? So the two of us, Jen and I, we started our podcast and we just brought people on who do things like we do
Mhm.
and shone the light on other people. So that was the first podcast. And from there, it was a very slippery slope. We just kept going and going, and I just kept chasing that podcast dream. And
Yeah.
here we are.
Yeah. So did you have some type of speaking background beforehand? Did you enjoy doing radio, anything like that? Did you always enjoy having conversations? Or I'm trying to figure out where all this stemmed from because 25 conversations a week, if that can be draining, but if you really like it, I mean, it can be very fulfilling. But I'm sure that every single 25 people that you go and have a conversation with, especially when you're pre-interviewing, pre-qualifying someone, it's not always necessarily an energetic match, you know. Now that can
Yeah.
only be a 15, 20-minute conversation, but still.
Yeah, for me, I guess the biggest part of my life is music. So I've been a musician since I was 10 years of age. So that's a long time ago. But I love music. So in doing music, I'm out on stage. I'm in recording studios, doing some touring here around Canada. So I love being up on stage, even though I'm quite of an introvert. I'm kind of the guy who wants to leave the party 10 minutes after getting there. But when I get up on stage, I have to put on this persona because now I'm in front of a large group of people and you got to show up. You got to do your thing. Even if you're not feeling it, the crowd's there and the band's going on and there's no choice. You can't just say, I'm not doing this. No, get out there and play. So I do that. And then I do a lot of music editing and doing music editing and then hearing podcasts. I'm like, wait a minute, I can do this. I have all the gear. I've been doing this forever. It's just simple to go from music to spoken word. I can do this. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the connection.
Yeah. I think I want to hit on that a little bit more because I think something that people really struggle with is when there's resistance to doing something, right? We look to identify ourselves as introverted and then everything extroverted, no, that's not me, so I'm not going to do it, right? And so especially even with like, you know, my big thing's health and fitness. Well, I'm not a healthy person, so I don't go to the gym. I don't eat healthy. It's because we don't view ourselves as a healthy person. And so, did you have to go and make that big identity switch in order to say, hey, you know what, I am extroverted and I can do this? Or was it more of brute force where it was just, regardless of how I feel, this is what I'm going to do? Or perhaps just it was, hey, this is my alter ego, right? Are any of those kind of resonating in terms of how you started to do that?
Probably a mix of them all, I would think. I think like I could easily just be the introverted guy who just claims that as my title and I never push myself. I'll never meet anybody. I would never have met you. I
Yeah.
would never podcast because I'm afraid that people wouldn't like me, wouldn't like my voice. Who would ever listen to me? Right. So I would always battle that. And I'd battle that in music. Like there's better musicians than me, there's better guitar players than me. But when I got up on stage and got up there and played, something magic happens because you're doing it in a group setting, you're doing it with other people, and the support from the crowd made you better, right? So I could buy a guitar, practice in my basement, learn how to play some chords, and that's it. But the moment you get in front of a crowd, you have to raise your game up a little bit more because now it's not just for yourself, it's for others. And in podcasting, it's the same thing, right? I could talk to my dog, that's for myself. But when I talk to people, I have to like, okay, this is a little more serious.
Mhm.
Like people are listening to this, hopefully. I would love to make sure that I'm doing my best for them. So I'm
Mm.
going to raise my game up. I'm going to be a little bit more out there than I would normally be. You meet me at a conference or a meeting, I am going to be pretty quiet at first, especially if I don't know who you are. But I get to be a little bit like an elevated version of Dave in a group setting because I gotta be in. I gotta show up and I gotta enjoy this because people might want to come and talk to me and I need to meet these other people. So it's a great way for me to be a better version of myself.
Mhm.
And by podcasting, it forces me to do things I wouldn't naturally do on my own. So if you're
Yeah.
listening to this and you're like, oh, I could never podcast,
Mhm.
I challenge you that there's a lot of things you've done in life that it's been really hard to do,
Mhm.
and you are doing them quite well to the point now where you don't even think about it.
Mhm.
I My first car was a manual transmission, 5 speed. And when I first got in that thing, I'm like, I can't do this. Clutch, gas, brake, three pedals, 2 feet. How the heck do you do that? Right? You get on
Mhm.
a really steep hill and you got to go from clutch to gas to brake, and there's a car right behind you, and you're like going to roll backwards and hit them. I'm like, you just got to figure it out.
Yeah.
But now I tell everybody I can't drive an automatic car.
Mm.
I can only drive standard. And they're like, what? So it becomes a part of you.
Yeah.
And once you grow into that, there's really no going back. And that's
Yeah.
why I love podcasting.
Do you think that what separates a really great podcaster from someone that just never breaks that threshold, do you think it's actually that switch where it's I'm doing this for myself to I'm doing this for everyone else? Do you think that's a big part of it?
For me, the biggest part of it is community,
Mm,
I guess,
okay.
because when we podcast, like back to your earlier episodes, right? You get
Hmm.
on the mic, you record this thing, you put it out in the world, and you go, I don't know. Maybe someone will listen to this.
Yeah.
But the moment somebody reaches out to you, like through your speak pipe, for example,
Hmm.
and leaves you a message, and they're like, hey, Shawn, I love your show. Episode 6 was amazing.
Hmm.
I'm doing life differently because of you. Like that moment's like, wait, this is working. Like
Yeah.
there's actually a person out there.
Hmm.
And now it's going from beyond this imaginary person you might be talking to the actual person you're talking to. It's like now I have a name. I have Shawn. Shawn has heard my episode. And now I can think of Shawn when I record my next podcast and do the show for Shawn. Right. So it's a different thing that helps you become better at what you do
Yeah.
because there's a community around it. And the podcast community between like fellow podcasters and then listeners are amazing.
Yeah.
It's so different than social media. It's so different than radio.
Yep.
It's different than music.
Yep.
It's there's a community of listeners and fellow podcasters that push you to make you better. And that's
Hmm.
what I love about this.
Yeah. Now you were telling me beforehand you had a couple of stranger interactions recently. Did you want to touch on one or two of those? Just share them with us and
Yeah, I have some fun ones.
okay.
I just did an interview for my Living the Next Chapter podcast, my
Hmm.
author podcast. I had an email come into me about 2, 3 months ago saying guest suggestion. I'm like, oh, here we go. I'm like, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not so good. Those
Hmm.
emails. And I'm looking at it, I'm reading it, and the last name seemed really familiar. So I'm reading through this, and it was written to me on behalf of the PR agency sending it to me. And I'm reading it, I'm like, wait a minute. And the last name was Nimoy. And I'm like, Nimoy, like as in Leonard Nimoy, as in Spock from Star Trek Nimoy? Yeah, it's his son, Adam, wrote a book
Oh,
about his dad and
oh,
wanted to come on the show to talk about his new book.
wow.
So here I am last week interviewing Adam Nimoy, who was on The Big Bang Theory TV
Yeah.
show, right? He was a
Huh.
guest star on that show. His dad was also on that show.
Yeah.
This guy, is a director. He's done all kinds of TV and movies. He's really a big name in the space,
Yeah.
and he wants to talk to me. I'm like, this is like I'm a guy in my downstairs basement. I'm wearing pajama pants
Yeah.
and a t-shirt,
Yep.
and this guy is in California, and he's all dressed up nice. He speaks on red carpets. People want time with him.
Yeah.
And here he is giving me an hour of his time. And we had a great conversation.
Oh my God.
And like when I was a kid, I was the kid with the Star Trek lunchbox, right?
Yep.
With his dad on the front of it. And
Yep.
now I'm talking to the kid who that's his dad. Like it's
That-
it's about a podcast. Like I can't believe I have this opportunity. There is, again, back to my original point, there's no way I would ever have time with this guy, ever. If I called him up on the phone and said, "Hey, Adam, my name's Dave. I'd love to have coffee with you," he'd be like, "Go away, kid. You bother me. Like, why are you calling me?" But when he's reaching out to me through his agency to come on my show, again, that didn't happen in the first 5 episodes. I have 390 episodes for that podcast. It took a while, but his agency saw something in the podcast that was a good fit for him. And there he is on my screen, just like we're doing right now. The most amazing experience. I was so nervous. I don't want to screw this up.
Yep.
Right? He talks to big names, not some guy in Canada. So I just thought it was so cool that a podcast can lead to speaking to people that really you have no business talking to. And now I walked away from that going, I'm not just a podcaster anymore. I'm the media,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm not like the 15-minute interview on the morning show,
Hmm.
right? Where you're sitting down with some host on a TV show and they don't even know who you are. And they're like, "So you're an author? Yeah, tell me about your story." Well, I'm a guy talking to you for an hour
Yeah.
and I'm media. And it's just
Hmm.
like this revelation that this is more than just a podcast. In that moment, I get to talk to great people. It's awesome.
Yeah. A couple of different synchronicities that I've started to see, just like how you had talked about on my show. Oh, if you go and listen to episode six, when you had said that is actually my most popular episode, which is very interesting. Very strange that you go and say something like that, right?
I listened to your show.
Um,
So there you go. So I
yeah,
like that episode.
yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
And then the same thing, like um you being a Star Trek fan, having Spock on your lunchbox, and then that's the synchronicity that I'm seeing here. It's like, how do you even like that's the person that's gonna reach out, that's the son that's gonna reach out. Like it just I think the world shows you, hey, you're on the right path when stuff like that starts to line up and you didn't expect it, right? And so, but I love the point that you had just started to bring up about how this is media. This is how people are getting their information. This is how people are getting their news. Do you think that this is the way the world is shifting in terms of media on television will go away? And I understand, we're just making some well-educated guesses or opinions here. Do you think 5, 10 years that's going to go away and it's all just going to be stuff like this, or even just the next wave of whatever podcasts or social media looks like?
I think that podcasters are increasingly being seen as more trustworthy as a source of information than
Mhm,
a lot of the other things in the world.
mhm,
Again, you listen to your local radio station. Most likely it's not local. It's probably a part of a big group of radio stations, and you're not getting anything that's truly local to your area. It's just piped in from some big master computer somewhere. And The people on the mic don't even live in your town,
Mm.
right?
Yep.
So that whole local and personal interaction that we have in podcasting, it's hard to beat. It's really hard to beat because this is two human beings having a conversation.
Hmm.
There's no AI being used right now. It's just
Hmm.
the two of us, right? So I think that we are increasingly being seen as influential. And I'm not talking about, hey, look at my shoes,
Yeah.
buy my shoes. It's more, this is how I see the world, and these are some tools or a book that I read, or here's a resource for you that'll help you. And that's what I like about your show is you're really focusing in on that. You're
Hmm.
here to help people and help them live healthier. So that's what I love about your show. I just think that once you make a connection back to community, you make a connection with someone, they start emulating you, they start copying you, they start doing the thing.
Hmm.
I can listen to shows of people who have been listening to my show, and I hear them saying things that I say or
Mm.
doing the things that I do.
Hmm.
I'm doing that on purpose. I want to show you how to do this. That's why I
Yeah.
have the How to Podcast series. It's
Yeah.
in the name. I want to show you ways to be a podcaster.
Hmm.
By no means am I saying it's the only way or the best way.
Hmm.
I'm saying it's one of the ways. But when I hear people, for example, you have your speak pipe, you have your buy me a coffee, I'm like, see, there you go. Those are things I've been trying to promote on my show to help
Hmm.
podcasters grow
Yep.
and get feedback from their audience and make some money with their show.
Yeah.
Those are two ways. And the fact that you have that set up, that's amazing. So
Hmm.
when I hear and see people doing things that I think can help them and they put it into practice, it's so rewarding.
Yeah.
It's like they're doing the thing and it's working. I love
y-
that.
Yeah. Um, I think that like a great point and an underlying thing that you're talking about here is that the world is very abundant, right? And so when you're looking at, okay, I want people to emulate me, I want people to copy me, some people will withhold information because, oh, I don't want someone else to steal this and do this, and then I won't be able to ever have business because they did it and it was my idea first. um, did you always have this abundant mentality of, you know what, like I'm just gonna give, 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 and I can be successful, other podcasters can be successful, or did you have to go through something where it was, ooh, I feel a little scarce now, and I gotta make this switch. I gotta jump over this bridge to get there.
Think of your favorite inventor, whoever that is.
Okay.
Could be current, it could be in the
Hmm.
past. How many inventions would one inventor have? One invention, and that's it. I
Yep.
invent one thing and I'm done. No, they
Yeah.
usually invent a lot of things,
Yeah.
right? They're always tinkering. They're always like, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? For me in podcasting, I have eight. I don't have one thing that I do. I do
Hmm.
multiple things.
Yeah.
So my mind is always working on the next thing. And when I kind of do a little smile when I hear people that are, I would say, kind of like do the same thing that I do,
Hmm.
talk about podcasting, and then I release an episode and about 3 weeks later, they release almost the same episode. And I'm like,
Hmm.
well, that's interesting because I put a lot of work and time into that and I pulled all those resources. And now I listen to their show and it's like they just did something very close to what
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I smile and I'm like, well, if I had any part of influence on that, great. I
Hmm.
think that's awesome
Yeah.
because maybe they're listening to my show. And
Yeah.
if they're getting value out of that, now they're duplicating that value and sending it to their audience.
Hmm.
They're not giving me credit. If they did pull it from mine, I'm not
Yeah.
looking for that, right?
Yeah.
I'm more of, again, to the abundance mentality. I just want to be able to put more out into the world.
Hmm.
And if people want to use that for their purposes, great. That
Yeah.
means more people are going to do more of that. My biggest thing in podcasting is I just want to create a positive atmosphere around podcasting where I've
Hmm.
heard some negativity from some people in the space who seem to have one way to do this podcast thing.
Hmm.
And I think there's multiple ways
Yeah.
of podcasting and doing it well. So
Yeah.
what I do is instead of having a show where I'm the host and you only hear my voice, I bring on guest co-hosts. I brought you were on. You were an
Hmm.
amazing episode. So I just like hearing other voices in podcasting because there's a secret here. My wife will definitely confirm this. I don't know what I don't know,
Mm.
right? I
Hmm.
only know what I know. So
Yep.
by bringing you on, you might do something completely different than I do. And now I'm the student.
Yeah.
I'm learning from you. You're like, but I have 5 episodes.
Hmm.
Yeah, but you're a podcaster
Yep.
and I can learn from you.
Yep.
So it's not about one single voice in podcasting and it
Hmm.
has to be Dave's way or it's not right. No, it can
Yeah.
be Shawn's way
Yeah.
and be perfectly fine for you.
Yep.
And so I bring on guest co-hosts and I get as many voices on as possible. And sometimes we don't even agree.
Hmm.
And I love that
Hmm.
because that means there's space for everyone. And I
Yep.
think podcasting is truly for everyone.
Yep. So when you, with how many people you talk to, how many different conversations, how many podcasts you've just listened to in general, I don't know how much you keep in touch with people afterwards. I mean, with the amount of people, it's you can't keep in touch with everyone, right? But the people that actually quit podcasting, why do you think the majority of people that you have seen decide this is no longer for me?
Sometimes they've started for the wrong reason.
Okay.
So they look at someone like Joe Rogan, who is way down the road and been doing this for a very long time. He's got a big machine behind him
Hmm.
that makes all this possible. And then there's, you and I, Shawn. Like we're early days in this compared to him.
Yep.
Most podcasters are early days compared to him. He has fame, he's got a background, he's got television and comedy, he's got back in the day, The Fear Factor. I'm
Yep.
like, you love that show.
Yeah.
He'd been doing this for so long, he's built a name, and now his name has turned into a podcast. So people who I find think that I can record 5 episodes and be Joe Rogan famous with 5 episodes and no history, no no hard work.
Hmm.
That's not how it works.
Yeah.
So one good comparison would be Mr. Beast on
Oh wow.
YouTube.
Yep.
So go back to Mr. Beast's first 10 posts on YouTube, okay, where he got like 70 people, 30 people looking at his video on YouTube. That's the beginning of Mr. Beast.
Yep.
So if you look at your beginning and compare it to Mr. Beast's beginning,
Hmm.
he had 20 views and you have 22 views. You're doing better than Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
Think of it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, don't think of it as Mr. Beast today compared to Shawn today.
Hmm.
That's not fair.
Yep.
That's not a fair comparison. So when people get into podcasting for the wrong reasons and don't see the success that they anticipate to get, they're not making a lot of money out the door right at the start, then they give up. They're like,
Yep.
well, this is a lot of work and I have a job and I can't do both.
Yeah.
So I'll quit.
Yeah.
Or they run out of ideas because they don't know who they're talking to.
Mm.
They create an episode, they create 5 episodes, and then they're like, I don't know what to talk about anymore.
Yep.
I'm just going to quietly exit, and that was fun.
Hmm.
So it's sad because there's a lot of great people out there who can help a lot of people with their voice and
Yeah.
their story.
Yeah.
So my goal is to try to keep people podcasting as long as it serves them.
Yeah.
That's all.
Something that really helped me, especially this last week, in terms of reframing and comparing yourself to others. I could go, just like we're talking about Rogan, Mr. Beast, all of these bigger names, for lack of a better term. So when you start to look at LeBron, people want to go and emulate LeBron and what is his workout routine right now, right? But his workout routine right now is 6 hours a day and or whatever, and you know, $100,000 on recovery, whatever it is, right? And people want to go and try to emulate that in order to get there. But really, they should be studying what was LeBron doing in high school, what was LeBron doing in college that ended up to get them there. And I think it's the same thing that we're trying to say, where you go and look at Mr. Beast right now and you try to emulate what he's doing, but that's not going to get you to where he is. If you go and emulate what he was doing 10 years ago, that's going to be a much better indicator of how to get where he is. Not
Mm.
saying that you always need to compare, but if you're going to compare, why are you comparing to his chapter 10 when you're on chapter -4? And really,
Exactly.
you need to go, all right, I'm on chapter 1. Where was he at chapter 1? What can I take away from what he was doing there? You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
So I think that's it. That's important just to bring up. And so what I also want to hear, if we're looking to, uh, again, speculate, just give some well-educated guesses here, within the next 5 to 10 years, or let's say more like 1 to 2 years, do you think that there's a couple of names or different podcasts that you think are going to start to blow up, right? So Joe Rogan's already at the top. I look at someone like Chris Williamson with Modern Wisdom. I don't
Hmm.
know if you know that
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
That was really something that it felt like it was just automatically, just within a year it just blew up, right? I look at something like Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett. I'm not sure if
Hmm.
you're familiar with that
Yep.
one.
Yep.
um Again, it just felt like, and they have a lot of episodes and they've done a lot of work, and no discredit to them, right? They've worked very hard. It feels like they're an overnight success even though they're not. Are there any podcasts right now that either you think can get to that point where you can just say, okay, they're an overnight success like that? Or can you give us some tips on perhaps what they did in order to, hey, you're not working hard enough to get where they are right now?
Hmm. I love the journey of like Smartless, for example, right? And what I love about their show is they do just whatever they want. It's like they don't really care. They don't their commercials are funny. They make fun of themselves. They just they do everything wrong. And I guess the one thing when I look at when I say wrong in the sense that it's against everything that's been taught in podcasting.
Hmm.
So, which I like, actually, I like the fact that they do it different than everyone else. But the one thing that they have the advantage of being famous,
Hmm.
right? Again, back to all the other stuff we talk about. So they can get away with it. So, but the problem is with somebody brand new who thinks, well, if Smartless can do it this way, I'm going to do it that way. And then they don't see the results
Yep.
because they're not famous,
Yep.
right? And people are like, just feels like a bad version of Smartless.
Yeah.
So they stop. It was like the whole E on fire, right? Everybody wanted to be E on fire, entrepreneurs on
Hmm.
fire. So everybody was like teachers on fire and gardeners on fire and firefighters on fire. It was like
Yep.
everybody was on fire,
Yep.
right? And everybody did it the same way because it worked. So, hey,
Yeah.
I'm just going to copy it and do it my version. And eventually it just got to the point where it was so watered down that it didn't have the same impact anymore.
Yeah.
So a lot of it just depends on, I think you should be you.
Mm.
That's the first thing for a
Yep.
podcaster
Yep.
because no one else can be you,
Hmm.
right? John Lee Dumas is John Lee Dumas. That's him,
Hmm.
so he does it really well. Stephen Bartlett is Stephen Bartlett. So he's not trying to be someone else. Joe Rogan's not trying to be someone else.
Yep.
They're all trying to be themselves. So I think in podcasting, a lot of us try to copy other people, which
Hmm.
is can be good because you can learn from other people, but at the
Yep.
same time, you're trying to copy the results as well. And
Hmm.
the results, again, are going to vary depending on your effort,
Yep.
time, all that, right?
Yeah.
I think the podcasts that are going to blow up are the podcasts that connect with people.
Mm.
That's
Hmm.
it, really. And you can
Hmm.
start today
Yep.
and you can pass all of the other podcasts that have been around for years just by doing community better, by
Hmm.
doing connection with your audience better, by
Hmm.
doing content better. By because you can start where other people have taken them 10, 15 years to get here and learn from them. You can skip all that.
Hmm.
So you're not starting where they started back to, 15 years ago. You're starting at their 15-year mark. Could you learn from them
Yeah.
and go, I'm going to fast track and I'm going to start at a different spot than they did. Think of a race in public school, grade school, where you had to run, like a mile or two.
Hmm.
And if everybody started at the same line, it would be fair. But
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes the people can start later on in the race
Yep.
and they already got a head start on you. And you're like, well, that's not fair. Yeah, but they learned from you and they got a little head start on you. So
Hmm.
we all start at different spots.
Yep.
And some people will start ahead of you, some will start behind you, but you can learn from each other.
Yeah.
And I think the best podcasts going forward will be the ones that connect and build community.
Yep.
If you don't have community and you don't have that focus on the listener, it's
Yeah.
going to be a lot harder.
So what does it actually take to go and build a community? Where would you start building a community? How would you start?
Well, starting your podcast, obviously you don't have a community, right?
Yep.
At the beginning for most of us. Again,
Yep.
we're not Joe Rogan famous,
Yeah.
so we're starting with zero.
Hmm.
So I like the idea of building the content out for the person that you think would listen to the show. Some people will call that an avatar. I challenge that and say, I just build the podcast that I would listen to
Mm,
because I'm the only one listening.
yeah.
I hit record, I put it out there, and my listenership is one, me.
Yeah.
I listen to make sure I didn't make any mistakes. There, I just listen to my show.
Yeah.
So I make the show that I would listen to and I think is not out there in the space.
Mm,
So health podcasts, what?
mm.
Thousands of health
Oh
podcasts
yeah.
out there to make you live healthy.
Oh yeah.
But there's only one podcast on health by Shawn Rivers,
Yeah.
right? There's the only one.
Yep.
So you're unique and no one sees the world the way you do. So
Mhm.
make the show that you would listen to.
Mm.
And by doing so, anyone that listens to your show in the future is going to like you as the host because you're making the show that you like.
It's true.
So when I listen to it, I like the show because I like you.
That's true.
So now I have a connection with you as a listener, and I haven't even met you yet.
Yeah.
But I'm hitting play on your episodes because I like how you talk.
Yep.
I like how you interview people. I like the value you're giving to me on every episode.
Mm.
So I already have a relationship with you, and we've never even met.
Yeah.
Right. And then when you put a speak pipe out there and say, hey, if you want to leave a message to be on, my podcast, leave a message. And I'm like, hey, Shawn, it's Dave in Canada. I listen to
Yep.
your show. I love episode 6.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Right. There's a listener. So
Yeah.
now I have one listener. And
Mhm.
I challenge everybody when they get tied up in numbers about podcasting that I have to have 1,000 listeners or 100,000 listeners or 500,000 listeners. I won't rest until I get that number. And they almost treat like a small audience as a failure.
Mhm.
I don't like that. I
Mhm.
think that a small audience is something where you can build a community right there.
Mhm.
So if there's 5 people listening to your show, Shawn, I would do everything I can possible to find out who they are,
Mhm.
to talk to them and have
Mhm.
time like this on the screen or voicemail or something
Mhm.
where I can hear their voice or see them on my screen. And if I could get those 5 people and I have interaction with them, I think I could turn that into 6 people, which
Mhm.
can turn into 10, which is turn into 20 to 30 to 50 to 80 to 100. That happens one at a time.
Yeah.
And I think we need to celebrate the small.
Mhm.
When our kids are little, we want them to hurry up and grow up so we can go do stuff with them. But then they get to the point when they're so old they leave.
Mhm.
My kids are out of the house. I'm an empty nest dad.
Yep.
I would love to have them back, but they're all
Yep.
doing life now. They're gone.
Mhm.
So as much as I wanted them to hurry up and grow up, I want my audience to hurry up and get big.
Yep.
I miss when they were little. I miss when my audience was small
Mm.
and I could have time with them
Mm.
in a smaller format without feeling like I'm neglecting anybody. As your
Mhm.
podcast gets big, Joe Rogan does not have time for one-on-one time with every one of his that listens to his show.
Yeah.
Possible.
Yep.
Totally impossible, right? So
That's it.
celebrate the small. When you have 5 listeners, that's not failure.
Mhm.
That's the foundation
Yeah.
for your podcast.
Wow, that's a great way to put it that I have not heard before. So that's really important. And especially like first thing that I came up that came up for me was we look at social media and like my time I grew up more with social media as opposed to you did, right?
Yeah.
Clearly you're a little bit older than me, right?
Thanks.
So
Yeah, yeah, I know that.
so but I look at, people are so concerned at Instagram followers and, how many views, listens, all this kind of stuff. And just like what you're saying, right? I always try to reframe it as, I have like 1,000 followers on Instagram or whatever it is. If you turn that into 10%, and I'm not even talking community here, right? I'm a business owner. If that became 10% as customers, that's 100 people. Imagine if you had 100 new customers, right? 10% of your audience. That's all you need. Not even. You don't even need that. Even 5%. Imagine 50 if you had 1,000 Instagram followers and 5% became customers. Oh my God, 50 people. Imagine 50 people every single year that were new customers for you. Oh my God, you wouldn't have to worry about customers again, right?
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think it's the same thing you're saying, right? So like building a community, those 5 people, if those 5 people stick around every single year, if you got to 30, within 5 years, 30 customers a year, you could, depending on your business, right? I have a service-based business. You can you can live a very great life with 30 customers a year, and that's it.
Yeah.
And that's all
Yeah.
you need, right? And I'm talking customers, you're talking community, both intertwined just a little bit depending on what you're doing, right? To to preface like or not preface, but to go with what you were saying of you need to be yourself, right? I think that's one of the most difficult conversations that I have with people, and people don't know themselves very well, and so they have a hard time going and actually like being themselves, starting a podcast or, being on a podcast or even just everyday conversations. They don't really know themselves. Are there any ways or tips or even just like little epiphany type moments that you've had that you were like, "Ooh, this is the real me," or did you have to do some deeper work with it? Has I don't know which direction you want to go, looking at just, "Hey, this is me," right? As opposed to this is the fake version of me.
Yeah. So I did an episode on my podcast. I'm just trying to pull up on my screen while we're
Yeah.
chatting. When my kids were little, we would go out and do like a dirt bike thing. Okay, I've
Mhm.
got three kids and my wife, Jen. So the five of us. We would pile in the van and I'd take them to this place and we would get training in the morning and we'd had all different size bikes, right, for my kids and myself and my wife. And then we would training in the morning, in the afternoons, we would go ride the trails. We would have a trainer with us who would be in the front of the pack and a trainer at the back. So there's seven of us total. We'd hit the
Mhm.
trails. So much fun, right? So it's episode 245 of How to
Mhm.
Podcast.
Yeah.
On episode 245, I talk about the fact that on one of these trips with my family, we're riding around with these two trainers and we get to this one part where there's kind of like a little mini track off the main track. And it's kind of like the little practice area, little tiny hills and, little curves. And it's meant for beginners, really.
Mhm.
So my kids are out there booting around, having a great time. It was really fun. My wife's out there. She wipes out. She's having a great time. We're just kind of going around this little kids kind of track, right? And we're just kind of filling time. It's kind of a break. The main guy who's training us pulls up beside me on the bike and he's like, Dave, you look bored. And I'm like, no, I'm having a great time. Like I have my helmet on, right? So I
Yeah.
can't hear everything he's saying. I'm like, I'm having a great time. This is fun. He's like, no, come on, come with me. I'm going to show you some trails. Now, I have been riding, like I don't ride every day,
Yeah.
but in that I've been riding for about 4 hours by that
Mhm.
point and doing like little easy trails with my
Yeah.
family because my kids are young. He's like, come with me. Follow me. And I'm like, where are we going? He's like, I'm going to take you on the good trails. I'm like, what are the good trails? Like, not my wife and my kids, just me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm panicking,
Yep.
right? He's like, you got this. I watched you ride. You're fine. Come on, let's go. And he just tears off into the bush. Like I can hear him, but he's
Yep.
gone.
Yep.
And I know he went that way. So I got to go, right? Because he's going to be looking for me. So my wife's like, where are you going? I'm like, I don't know. So I just go take off and follow him. And we go into the probably the hardest trails ever.
Mhm.
Okay. Again, I'm on this huge bike. I don't have a lot of experience. Somehow I fooled him into thinking that he thinks I know what I'm doing. I don't,
Yep.
but I'm faking it really well and I'm riding through these trails. We're up on cliffs, we're in deep, deep valleys and deep ruts and water and trees hitting me in the face. And, and I just kept going because he would go down a hill and back up the other one and he'd wait. And he'd look behind him, and here I come. I follow his line. Wherever he goes, I go. And I just kept going. The whole time, my heart's going to come out of my throat. Like I'm going to die, right? I'm just like, oh Lord, oh Lord. I'm going down these hills like I'm saying all kinds of interesting things that I can't say on your podcast. And a few times we would stop at like a little spot and he's like, "You're doing great." And I'm like, "Seriously?" He's like, "Yeah, this is great. Isn't this fun?" And I'm like, "No." Like this is not
Yep.
fun because I'm fearing for my life here.
Yep.
And he's like, "Come on, let's do it again." And we rode for like 20, 30 minutes, the two of us. And then he took me back to the main part where my wife and my kids were. He's like, "You did great." And in that moment, I realized something about myself that I thought I was good on the little tracks with little bits of effort, and that's fun enough.
Mhm.
If he hadn't pulled up beside me and said, Dave, I see greatness in you.
Yep.
You can do bigger things than this little track. Come with me. I want to show you some fun stuff.
Hmm.
Like, this is great and all. Your kids are having a great time, but your kids are 7 years old.
Yeah.
Come with the adults. Let's go
Yeah.
over here. And I'm going to show you what riding a bike really should be.
Mm,
So he took me on these trails. So what I do in podcasting is I pull up beside someone like you, Shawn, and I go, Shawn, I see greatness in you.
hmm.
You can do this. Come with me, and I want to show you how fun this can be. And you're like, but I can't do this. I'm not good at this. I'm an introvert. I don't know how to talk on a microphone. I don't know what technology to use. I don't know. Do I have a website? Do I need social media? I don't know how to do all these things. How do I be a guest? How do I be a host? To get all this, I just want to do the easy thing,
Hmm.
right? But I'm like, Shawn, you can do this.
Hmm.
Come with me and let's do this together. I want to show you how fun this can be as
Hmm.
a podcaster.
Yeah.
So I'm on the hunt to bring out greatness in other people. I want to be that person who rides up beside you and goes,
Mhm.
"You look bored, Shawn.
Yeah.
Come with me. I want to show you something." Right? And then you're like, "But I don't think I can do this. I'm freaking out. I'm nervous. I'm afraid." But then when you come back, you're like, "You know what? I did it. I did something I would never do on my own because somebody saw something in me that I didn't see in myself." So that's what I do in podcasting is I just want to come beside you and you can give me 100 excuses about why you can't do this thing, but I see something in you that's different.
Mm.
So let's focus on that and let's bring that out a little bit and let's go have some fun, right? And if you don't stay as a podcaster, you've had some fun learning about something new about yourself that you would have never done otherwise. So jump on the bike. Let's go for a ride. I want to show you how fun podcasting can be.
Wow, that was I've got chills over here. This is, like one of the most powerful stories that has ever been portrayed on the podcast for sure.
There
So
you go.
I applaud you and honor you there, right?
See?
That was, whew,
See? So if you go listen to episode 245, you'll actually hear that story. But
yeah,
then I threw in the sounds of motorcycles in behind me.
yep,
So you can hear what it sounded like for me on the bike to kind of give you some kind of that background NPR thing going on
yeah,
behind you.
yeah.
Yeah, so I was having fun with my editing in that one too. So
Oh my God, that was, yeah, that's good stuff right there. Like that's the perfect place where it's all right, I don't need anything more. Dave, I want to hear where we can find you, connect with you, all those types of things. If you're accepting guests or if you want to be a guest on more podcast or just plugs for your own podcast, and then I'll ask you the last question here.
I love it. Shawn, great. I love how you did that because that's what I do on my show.
Yep.
It's very well done. So howtopodcast.ca is my website for my How to Podcast series. You can find me through there. Again, I have 8 different podcasts. Just send me a message. I'll send you the links to them all. But that's kind of where I teach podcasting. And
Yeah.
again, I'm the guy that's going to ride up beside you and go, "Hey, Shawn, I think you can do this." And you're doing it so well. So congratulations on that. And yeah, I love being a guest. So if you have a show and you're looking for a guest, I'd love to chat. As you can tell, I love
Mhm.
talking. But I'm also looking for guests for my podcast. I have an author podcast. I have a dad podcast. I have a children's podcast for Christmas. I have a lot of different things that I talk about, and
Mhm.
I just love meeting great people. So whether
Yeah.
you're Adam Nimoy or you're Shawn Rivers,
Yeah.
I would love to talk to you and get to know you as well.
Yeah. So as we were talking about Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett, this is where I had taken it and adopted it for my own show. Last guest leaves a question for the next guest, right?
Oh,
Which I enjoy. You perked right
I'm
up
setting
there,
up. Okay, here we go.
And this is actually a really perfect question for you. So from Lissa Scott, who is a branding expert,
Wow.
dead or alive, 3 bands you want to see live in concert before you die. Dead or alive is in the 3 bands or artists.
Can I see them for a second time? Because I've already seen them.
Yeah, yeah, I
Okay, all
can.
right.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
So again, being a musician, I I got to see the last concert with Eddie Van Halen in Toronto here in
Oh, wow.
Canada with Sammy before he passed away. I would love to see Eddie Van Halen play the guitar again. Right. So that would be huge for me. I was center, like underneath the clock on the main floor, right in the center of the building, right by the soundboard. It's the best sound in the world. at that event because it goes to the sound guy behind me.
Yeah.
And it was the best show ever. It was so good. So Van Halen with Eddie. I'm a Sammy guy, so I love Sammy Hagar. So that would be one
Yeah.
for sure. Um, Number two, I would say, hmm. Oh wow. I would love to see. I've never seen Elvis Presley in person.
Oh, wow.
That would be really cool to see,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'd love to travel back in time and be in that crowd
Yeah.
and be like the probably the only guy in the crowd with all the girls screaming.
Yep.
I want to and I want to see the Beatles come off the
Mm,
plane for the first time in the US.
okay.
You know, you see the video footage of that, but I want to stand on the tarmac and be there for that and then
Mm,
see them play and see the genius of those four guys together and what they did in
okay.
this world. I would love to be there in the moment.
Wow, that's pretty sweet. So, Dave, thank you for coming on. All right, guys, if you have not checked out uh 8 of Dave's podcasts, or if you have not started a podcast, Dave is the guy to listen to. So, Dave, thank you again.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean.